Hello there. Today I'm going to be doing a build on the Creation Bard. This is my favorite new subclass from Tasha's. I think it's really sick, but I'll get into that, onto why I think that. Um, so I'm just going to be going from levels 1 to 20, and it's designed for like each level of play. It's not like designed for a specific tier. It's going to be good at all levels. Um, it's going to be straight Bard, without any multi-classing. I don't think you necessarily don't get much out of multi-classing, but I don't think this is going for the sort of specific combos and gimmicky combinations that normally arise from multi-classing. And there's not a ton of just like the general benefits from like one or two class dips that I wanted to go for here. But there's definitely some good options for multi-classing. In particular, like Hexblade with any charisma class works really well. Lets you do like good damage with whenever you run out of spells instead of doing like crappy cantrips with especially bards. It's quite solid and also just gives you a bunch of defense and things like that. So obviously Hexblade is as usual pretty good multi-class, but aside from that, I'm not gonna bother much with multi-classing. So, let's look at the races. I think, especially with Tasha's new rules on races, if you're using those, literally any race is quite good. But you have tons of really solid options. But again, any race you want to play, even like a half orc or something, just totally works. It'll work totally fine. Some really good options. Looking at some ways to sort of um, shore up some of the weaknesses of the bard. I think in particular, defense is probably the biggest problem with just the base bard. There are some stuff we'll be doing later that'll mitigate that, but I think also just getting some races that give you some defensive bonuses are really good. So things like the Tortle. Tortle's probably your best option here if you want to focus on defense. Just the flat 17 AC is pretty much invaluable and it'll be better than anything else you're going to get unless you get some really strong magic items. Loxodon I also really like. You get to use your Constitution and add it to as your AC ability. Um, you'll so That's really solid. You can focus on just your con instead of any decks, things like that. Also, Mountain Dwarf gives you the medium armor proficiency, which is really solid, and in general, Mountain Dwarf is quite strong. But also, there's of course the generally really strong races. So Satyr and Yuanti are probably your best options from a purely mechanical standpoint. Yuanti, personally, I'd never want to play Yuanti Bard, just because I think, bards are very like expressionist and things like that, and like pretty much the whole point of the Yuanti is you've got that like reptilian um, neutrality, like they don't value emotion, things like that. So even if you're playing like a rogue Yuanti, it still wouldn't really fit super well. Um, I just think there's a bit of a conflict, but Satyrs are perfect for it. Another really strong options I like, Mark of Passage from a few other marks, I'll talk about them, but from the Wayfinder's Guide to Eberron. I might have that wrong. The official Eberron book. Um, so Mark of the Passage gives you some really solid spells, some teleports and things like that add to your list. I think it's in general quite a strong race. Mark of the Sentinel also gives you Counterspell and Shield, which are both really solid, like strong options for the Bard. Obviously, Counterspell is something that you'd be getting with Lore Bard in most cases, and you get to add your Jack of all trades bonus to it. So Bards are the best Counterspellers in the game. So yeah, Mark of Sentinel is a really solid option to get Counterspell, and Shield is another thing that buffs your defense is really strong. Changeling just thematically works so well. The kind of like tricksteriness that you can do with it, and all of that is very strong. Um, Aarakocra, as always, flying is busted as hell. So that's really strong if you want to go for the flying route. That also works pretty well. And I think flying, you could come up with some really creative things that rely on your flying with some of the abilities uh, later on. Also, half elf getting that extra ASI and just the extra skills and things like that. Half elf is always a solid option. Um, with variant human, obviously the new legacy race, whatever it is, the pretty much the Tasha's like choose your own race kind of thing, um, is better than the variant human, just straight up, and also a really good option. So looking at some of the feats you could take with that, on whether it'd be worth it, I think yeah, like you get some really good stuff. There's the normal bard stuff like actor and inspiring leader. If you want to pick up either of those, I'm not doing it in the build as is, but if you want to make something based around those two, sorry, either of those two, definitely go with variant human or the legacy race. There's some just obviously solid good ones like Warcaster and Resilient Constitution that are always good on a bard. Um, I think personally, what I would go with if I took a feat giving race is Meta Magic Adept. I think this is a really um, strong feat on the bard, especially Careful Spell in particular. You only do get 2 sorcery points a day, which is not a lot, so it's not something you can rely on, but it can make things a lot better. So Careful Spell in combination with something like a Hypnotic Pattern, you can just uh, fire straight at like a group of your friends, if that's surrounded by enemies and things like that. Like you don't need to worry about friendly fire at all, which is very nice. Also, Subtle Spell and Twin Spell are also very strong. Twin Spell, because you've got such a limited sorcery point pool, Twin Spell's a little worse than it normally would be. Um, and it's the same with Quicken Spell as well. I'm sure like you could think of some creative ways to use Quicken Spell and things like that, but I just think because you only get one use per day, it's just probably not worth a whole feat for it. Um, but twinning something like a hold person or something is a really good way of really good use of the feat. Some other nice feats I like are skill expert. If you want to really go down that skill monkey line, big hand. Telepathic just really nice to have in general. Um, and alert is pretty standard. Especially once you get into the damage control spells, having an extra initiative to not worry about friendly fire and things like that. If you're one of the first people to go, it can be really beneficial. Um, so I'm a big fan of having extra initiative on whenever I'm doing something battle control-y. Less important on a bard than it is on something like a wizard that's going down that route, but still very nice to have. But I personally am not going to go with any of those options just because of the kind of image I have for the character I want to build. And I feel quite comfortable doing that because, as I said before, every option, or almost every race, is quite, is a good option. There's no bad choices, and there's no amazing choices to the point that I'd be stupid to take anything else, you know. The best options are not way better than an okay option like this. But this is still a good option because halflings are strong. um, yeah, so that's going to give you advantage on saves against being frightened, which is going to come up quite a bit, like especially probably late tier 2, tier 3 kind of area is a lot of like really debilitating frightened ability, so it's always really nice. The standard Halfling Lucky, is just one of the nicest abilities to have. If you've ever played a Halfling, this comes up all the time, and if you remember to actually use it, it's just so nice. Yeah. Being able to rerun roll ones. You can move through the space of other creatures as long as they're a size larger than you, which is most creatures because you're size small. It's okay. I've never really actually used it before, but I'm sure I've never really thought to use it. So I'm sure it comes up often enough. And we're going with the stout halfling, just because I think it's the better of the two. And that's poison resistance and vulnerable poison saving throw, which, if you've ever played D&D, you know is strong. Alright, so selecting halfling. I'm going to go into the origin and change change ability scores. I don't. Oh, I didn't realize there was two of these. I suppose that's because it's a main race and then a sub race. And I don't feel any reason to change the languages. So, in my personal opinion, when you're using these origin changes, I would like to have a good reason to the reason that you've changed. So instead of dexterity, why is it that your halfling is particularly charismatic, for example. And that's usually pretty easy to tie in to why you're a bard or whatever class you're in. Yeah, so it would be buffing charisma by 2 and our constitution by 1. I might go straight into abilities now. I'll just be using a point by, but if you're rolling, I'll talk about a couple of the options there. So you want to be getting a 17 charisma because of a feat we'll be getting later. So bump that up to 15, and that's the reason I got +2 with the origin. Beyond that, I think dexterity and constitution are your next 2 and most important stats on a bard. I think they're very, very equal. If you want to have one more than the other, that's totally makes, like mechanical sense. Having one less and one more in another, as long as they're even, is very, very solid. Personally, low levels, I'd put dexterity a bit above constitution, and high levels I'll put constitution a bit above dexterity. For now, I'm just going to keep them even. I'll do 13 in constitution and 14 in dexterity, and then go back to my origin, my race, sorry, and get, constitution score. So that'll give me a 14 in both of them, which will be solid. And then with the rest of the points, it doesn't really matter. It's what you personally want. I think I don't want a negative intelligence. Personally, I just don't like having characters with a negative intelligence. Strength, I don't really care about. I'd probably go with a 12 wisdom, but if you're someone that likes to have, for roleplay reasons, have like how you roleplay your character, be pretty in line with their actual ability scores, I would definitely go for a 12 in intelligence instead, because and you're wanting to follow this build, because I'm thinking this is kind of like a little bit of a mechanic kind of character. I think this is actually this class, as I'll be talking about later, is probably the best way to make a mech character, which doesn't seem obvious at first, but it's with the dancing item ability, and that's kind of what I want to go with. So making them a bit of a tinkerer, I think definitely makes sense to buff your intelligence. Moving on to background. With backgrounds, I mean, backgrounds are really not important when you're talking from like an optimization standpoint, but if you are allowed, the Ravnica backgrounds, of course go for them because they're obviously better than any other backgrounds. If you don't know, the Ravnica backgrounds give you extra spell options. So two in particular stood out to me. Orzhov, I hope I pronounced that right. Orzhov representative gives you access to guidance and spirit guardians. So guidance, I think, is personally my favorite cantrip. I think it's the best cantrip in the game, and spirit guardians is probably my favorite third level spell as well. It's obviously really strong. Yeah, it's strong on any character that could get it would be very significantly benefiting from it. Also, from Azorius Functionary, you can pick up Counterspell. In particular, I think those are the two main options. But I'm just going to assume that you're not getting one of those, and you just go for a thematic one. Backgrounds honestly don't matter even a little bit. I'm personally going to go for Folk Hero. I think that's fitting with what I have in my mind for the character, again, which I will talk about in a minute. And get Tinker's Tools. As I said, they're going to be a Tinkerer. Animal Handling and Survival are two ability scores that I don't really particularly care about. If you could have any ability scores, I would probably go for Persuasion. All abilities that you want, I think, you get from the Bard abilities proficiency list. So just pretty much any two from there. But probably some key ones are Perception and Persuasion. But I think the most important thing from a background is the tool proficiency getting Tinker's Tools, because there's not really another place that makes sense to get that. I did not mean to change that, my bad. Moving on to equipment, we'll just do standard equipment. Set advantages tools, Tinker's Tools as expected. Oh, I haven't. We'll do first of all Bard first. So at first level, you're obviously not going to be any different to a normal Bard. With proficiencies, I'm just going to grab, I like Pan Flute, I like the Lute, and Lyre, but obviously whatever you want works perfectly fine. And skills, so I will for sure be going for Persuasion and Deception, I think. I just, obviously, you Bard, you're most likely going to be the face of the party and be doing fun things with that. So Persuasion and Perception, and also Perception is good. So Persuasion, Deception, and Perception, I think, are probably your three best options. I really like Insight as well if you're going to be a face type character. And then you get Bardic Inspiration as per usual, but looking at the spells, cantrips. The cantrips I'm gonna go with are Minor Illusion. I think just has just infinitely awesome uses, and it really fits. Like there's gonna be a lot of creative uses. I'm gonna say those two words a lot. Creation bards, you gotta be creative. Go figure. But yeah, so this is definitely in keeping with that. Minor Illusion, excellent, superb spell. My other one, I know everyone likes Vicious Mockery, and there's no reason not to do it. I'm just honestly not much of a fan of it. Personally, I think it's cool, and it's like bad damage, but okay, secondary effect, but it's just not really my kind of style. In lower levels, I'd prefer to use a light crossbow with my bard. So my secondary option is going to be Mending. I think Mending's just obviously all round a solid cantrip, and I think it works with being a Tinkerer. you're most likely going to break things and you can fix it, and it's just so it'll have a lot of utility in that sense. Onto first level spells. I think your first for sure pick is Tasha Hideous Laughter. I think excellent spell in general. Sleep is really good at this level. Other than sleep, I like having Healing Word as just an option to support whoever's the main healer. I'm personally I think healing is far overrated. I'm not a fan of healing, but Healing Word is someone goes down, you can bring them back up. First level, it's solid amount of health. No, it's an okay amount of health. Fury Fire is something is normally one of my more favorite first level spells. I think it's still a good spell, but I think on groups, you're probably at the stage that you can just they'll be low enough HP that you can just use a sleep spell on them. So I think in most of the cases that you would want to use Fury Fire, you'll be good enough. Like sleep, you'd be better off using sleep at this level. I think if you don't have a wizard or someone else that would be using Detect Magic in the party, I think Detect Magic is definitely what I would go for. I really like having that kind of utility. But some other really good spells are Charm Person. It can end encounters before they start. You just charm like the leader of a group if they're kind of getting a little bit aggressive towards you, and you can convince them to go away. And alternatively, Silent Image. I think because we've got Minor Illusion, I'm less tempted to take Silent Image, but I think it's excellent still spell. So many uses. And also Disguise Self is another classic. But I'm going to stick with Detect Magic for now. But either of those other three spells, I think, are also really good options, if it's what you like. So let's just go on to equipment. Sorry, misspoke. A hand crossbow. The bards don't have proficiency with light crossbow, I'm fairly sure. But a rapier is a good option. And I'm not a particular fan of a Diplomat's pack or an Entertainer's pack. I think not having an Explorer's pack is actually pretty debilitating in a lot of times if you are keeping track of these kinds of items. But I like Entertainer's pack more. The Diplomat's pack is probably worth a good amount more. But Entertainer's pack, you've got like a disguise kit, which is pretty cool. It'll come up. You don't have proficiency, but it's still useful. And I'm just grab the loot. And leather armor and dagger's good. Yep. So I'll just add all that. Things to look out for in equipment is a hand crossbow in particular, and studded leather. Probably studded leather before the hand crossbow. So I just want to talk about for a bit my personal character concept I've got is an idea for how I want to run this bard. So as I said before, I think if you want to make a mech character, this is honestly it's not intuitive, but I think it's the best way to do that. So someone that rides in a mech. So I'm thinking you're a halfling that's lived in a city and has always been like interested in tinkering and things like that, and you like to go to these underground, either like robot fighting kind of thing, or just like you've seen like you have people that have little contraptions that they have fight each other and things like that. And you get into that, but obviously you're not the most amazing tinkerer in the world, so you're not very good at that. And the way I was thinking maybe your charisma came in is that you made up for not being good by being entertaining, and that way, whoever's running these underground rings and things like that still like to have you around, and like maybe that's the way you get paid is, you can be that entertaining kind of figure there. But and you always make, coming into the creation bar, you always have really creative ways of making things. You have like really gimmicky clockwork tools and things, clockwork items. I don't know. Sorry, I don't know quite know what they're called, but you do a lot of gimmicky things that are creative and usually probably don't work out, but people find you really interesting for it, and I think that's probably not enough money as maybe you could add some like bard stuff, but personally, I was just gonna say like I had a bit of musical talent, so I made that just use that to get a little bit of extra money. But as you start doing doing these creations, I haven't got the specifics down, but there's some kind of creation type spirit out there gains an interest in you, but doesn't at the moment have a way of physically interacting with the world. Some kind of creation, like sentient force that doesn't actually have a way of influencing the world at the moment and sort of needs a vessel. And I think that's where you're going to get your creation powers from. That's my personal flavor that I like the idea of for the bard, for this bard. And as you go on, once you get to your actual like mix, your 6th level ability, that's actually it's just giving a full body vessel for the spirit. I thought that would be just a really fun roleplay opportunity. So you've got whatever inciting incident leads you to go on your adventure. I thought it would be a really fun, if you're starting lower level, a really fun a thing on those lower levels of you just trying to like work on this mech that you've got going on, and it's just not working well. Um, but you slowly making progress on it, and you're gonna be making progress on it until level 6. Um, but anyway, well, let's just get into the build. So, 2nd level, this is pretty much just you get your Jack of Trades and Song of Rest, standard stuff, and you get some extra spells. I didn't mention it before, but Thunderwave. Thunderwave's a good damage option for bards, and they tend to not have good damage options. So that Thunderwaves is a very solid first level spell in terms of blasts. And the other one I want to take. Another option you could have is Fairy Fire, as I said before, but I still think you're at this stage where I probably would still be using Sleep in most cases that I would otherwise be using Fairy Fire. So your tactics at this level is you've got 3 spell slots per day. This is also first level, so 2 spell slots in that case. Whenever you are coming across, so there'll be different encounter types. If you've got one with one or like 2 fairly strong enemies, that's the time that you want to use Hideous Laughter. It's really good. It takes out one strong enemy always. If you're dealing with so Hideous Laughter is good against single targets if you're worried about single targets, and then you'd use Sleep when there's a bunch of weaker enemies. But there will also be times that you probably want to use Thunderwave instead. And Healing Word, maybe keep a spell slot in your back pocket for if someone goes down. It can be really good to get them back up. And Detect Magic obviously is a ritual. That's another reason why I wanted Detect Magic over the other ones, is because you don't have a lot of spell slots at this level, and you aren't able to cast a lot. So yeah, it's good to have a ritual as opposed to one of these other spells. But once after you've done that, you either rely on your cantrips or you rely on your weapons. So Minor Illusion has a bunch of really good combat uses, things like making cover, trying to scare them enemies off, things like that. There's a ton of people that have talked about this extensively and can do a much better job than I would do. But this is also a time that you'd want to be using Vicious Mockery. Okay, now going on to 3rd level. Let's look at the class features. So, you got to pick your college, and of course we're going with College of Creation. Expertises, I'm just going to go with Persuasion and Deception. This is really an individual, thing, choice there. So, Motive Potential, it's a buff to your Bardic Inspiration. Your Bardic Inspiration pretty much just gets a lot better in all cases here. So, personally I think your attack roll is best if you try and buff people that they'll use it, so that they'll use the Bardic Inspiration for their attack rolls. Because obviously they get their increased chance to hit already, which is really strong. And then when that happens, whatever they targeted, there's a AoE that they make a con save, which obviously it's not the best saving throw, but it's still going to get plenty of fails, especially at low levels, and take thunder damage equal to whatever they rolled on the Bardic Inspiration die. So at the moment you've got a d6, so it's like a d6 extra damage to area of enemies. It's obviously not a lot, but if you're a bard, you'll be doing Bardic Inspiration a lot, so this will definitely come up quite a bit, and it's really, really good. Big fan. So the ability check is like advantage, sort of, on the Bardic Inspiration die. So you're more likely to get the higher numbers in the Bardic Inspiration in the ability check, which is very solid. And then with the saving throw, gets the temporary hit points equal to the Bardic Inspiration plus your Charisma modifier, which at the moment is 3. It'll be 4 soon. So yeah, like a solid amount of temporary hit points. It's obviously not game changing or anything, but it's always nice, and it'll always be significant. That's actually kind of like a not quite a Cure Wounds yet, but it's close to a Cure Wounds. It's a D6 plus your Charisma mod, but you can use it on people that are healed full, sort of thing. So that's actually like it's more significant than you think, but D6 instead of D8. But at this point, and it does scale to make it better. And also adds to your saving throw, which is probably like the reason people are using these is not the secondary effect. It's secondary, and all the secondary effects are strong. So yeah, very solid there. But the main thing is performance of creation. So you get to pretty much make something, pretty much, kind of whatever you want. There's obviously limitations to it. This is crazy strong and crazy versatile. It's the coolest though level feature I've ever seen anyone have. I can't believe I haven't seen like more talk about this, but I just feel like there's so many really, really, really good uses of this, and that'll just become more and more obvious as you play this. Because I think, like, because I'm just thinking like theory at the moment and situations I've encountered, and I can definitely think of tons, and I already think it's really strong, but you can use this to solve so many problems that you come across. So first of all, like the gold piece value, at this point, it's 20 times your bard level, which is quite a lot. At this point, it's 60 gold pieces, and you can just make it. 60 gold pieces worth, which is a lot of things. A lot of stuff that you can fit in a 5x5 cube will be, 60 gold pieces, and it just gets more. And at 14th level, it becomes insignificant. So at the moment, it's medium size, so 5x5 feet, and then obviously gets larger. Gets large and huge later on. So a couple uses for this is so you can replicate poisons. I'm assuming that still work, and apply those to people's weapons and things like that, and they can get some extra damage off. That'll be really good. You can make walls, you can make cover, you can make some surfaces like slippery. I'm assuming you can use it to make like grease. So you can use it, yeah. So you can make some slippery surfaces. And things like that for like tactical reasons. You can make some cover. You can scam some creatures. So it does say it's like clearly magical, but if what you're making to scam someone to pretend that you have like an item that you shouldn't is meant to be magical, then obviously this is good. If you know, this is another reason why you might want to have a bit of intelligence. In history, if you get the chance to pick it up, would be quite nice. Even maybe worth getting your expertise in. But so if you know a bit about like a race or something, or like a group of people that you're interacting with, and like most kinds of cultures have those like super magic items that they like, like the prophetized, a great savior to have, or something like that. Some weird thing that's if they saw that you were in possession of it, they would instantly trust you. So you can use something like that to scam people. Also thinking of things like cannons. They'll definitely be more than 60 gold pieces, but big weapons that it would normally be like way too cumbersome to carry around with you. You don't need to worry about that because you're just making them out of thin air. There's also, if anyone at your party still has like bad weapons, not the best that they want at the moment, you can give them those. But that's a pretty small feature and probably not overly worth it. Um, yeah, there's so many uses, and you'll just come up with more and more ways to use it as you move on. I've got a fun use for it next level, which I'll talk about. On to spells. So first of all, I'm gonna remove detect magic at this point, and healing word, and in second level spells, I'm gonna take aid. Oh, I didn't add. If you go to optional feature management, and you add the additional bard spells, and may as well add these. They're not coming up on the build, but I'm sure they, you may as well have them. So second level, I'm going to take aid. I think aid, you're going to have it as a better version of healing word, kind of thing. Like you're using it mostly to pick people up when they're down. But aid is just like a much better spell. I'm a big fan of aid. So you can pick up to like 3 people that are down, just by using this. It does use your action instead of your bonus action, but I think your action isn't overly valuable if you're already concentrating on something. If you're at the stage where you're just using cantrips or weapons, even having the option to use your bardic inspiration is much more useful than that. So I think action's not a big deal difference. Of course it is second level, but yeah. And also just like the buffing the 5 HP is just really nice, and the scales really well. If you want to use high level spells on it, I think it's just a really solid spell. Other than that, I also want to prepare mirror image. I think you definitely have some defense issues at this point, for sure. But like most bards do. I think suggestion is very potent. Um, one of the strongest second level spells, in my opinion. You can use it on like a main bad guy that's like backed up on some other people to have them maybe turn on them or something like that, or just run away, and that'll just like shatter the resolve of whatever you're fighting. There's a lot of uses of suggestion, and in keeping with the character theme, a lot of creative uses that you could find as well. An alternative to suggestion, I probably wouldn't take both of them, is calm emotions. It's like I mean, obviously it's got the like frightened and charmed use. Actually, does it stop charmed? Yes, charmed or frightened. So that can be a mitigator of that. But I don't think that's overly important at this level. It might come up, but not overly so. Main thing is you can kind of it's similar to how I was talking about with charm person. It's useful for avoiding encounters or getting your side the upper hand. It depends on how your DM runs charmed, because as described, it's okay. But yeah, stops the hostility, and it's very solid just to like avoid entire encounters. Um, I'm also forgot to do this earlier. I'm also gonna unprepare sleep at this point. I think you could still get some mileage out of it at this point, but pretty much fully at its use by date, and it's kind of on the rare encounter that it actually would be too useful. And I think definitely by next level you want to be unpreparing it, but may as well at this point. And in its place, we will get heat metal. So heat metal's quite a situational spell, but I think at this point you've got enough blanketing useful spells that it's good enough, and it's really strong in the specific circumstances that it comes up. If you're fighting someone with armor or like a strong weapon or something like that, like it's really good. It's consistent damage, and they'll just be like annoyed about it. But it's good damage round by round, and unavoidable in particular. Yeah, heat metal is a good spell when it comes up, but it's quite situational. So you've got 2 second level spells at this point, three third level spells. I think I said you had 3 first level spells before. You don't. You only have 2. but at second level. But so what you want to be doing, your general tactics, is you want to evaluate whether a combat is going to be hard or not. And if it's hard and you want to go a bit all out, I think Suggestion is probably your most powerful option at this point. And Suggestion is versatile enough that it can be used in pretty much all combats. You can think of a good use. And if something's looking quite tough, definitely use a mirror image, but I don't think it's overly important at this point. Heat metal, if it's the right situation for it, is probably better than your Suggestion. And if people go down, you have your aid. But yeah, so pretty much you've got your top of the list is Suggestion, which will be nice in most encounters, but it does use concentration. So if you want to do that, and then save your other things, most likely if you're using Suggestion in an encounter, you wouldn't need to use one of your other second level spells, or I wouldn't really recommend it. Obviously, there's exceptions to that, but yeah, that's the general advice. If it's sort of on the lesser side, consider a Hideous Laughter, which is always very solid. And then you've always got Thunderwave. So you can pretty much because it's using your concentration, and you've got 3 spell slots, you'll probably have 3 good uses of this in a day. But if you don't, if you're unlikely to be going through multiple encounters and things like that, you can pretty freely use Thunderwave. Do watch the friendly fire, but yeah, it's solid spell. And when you're concentrating on something else like Hideous Laughter or Suggestion, it's definitely good. But yeah, pretty much evaluate whether you want to use Heat Metal, Hideous Laughter, or Suggestion. You probably want to be using one of those each combat, as long as you can, as long as you can spare the resources for it. Yeah, and then you use your other spells, Thunderwave, Aid, to support that, and Mirror Image. But at this point, I wouldn't be unless you know it's gonna, you have time to prepare and you know it's gonna be quite a difficult encounter, like one of the, like the biggest one in the day, and you're kind of happy to go all out for this one. Prepare the Mirror Image. But it's using a pretty significant resource at this point in time. So I'd be kind of hesitant about using a mirror image. Anyway, on to 4th level. Okay, let's do spells first. So you've got another cantrip at this point. I think light, you don't have dark vision, so light is probably quite useful. But I'm just going to go ahead and take Vicious Mockery. You're a level away from the point that it scales, and at that point I think it's often going to be a better option than using weapons. So may as well take it. Not too happy about it, but it's Vicious Mockery, of course. It'll come up. Now at 2nd level, you're kind of at the point where you've got something good to concentrate on most encounters. So I'd like something that's good without concentration. At this point, you can kind of evaluate yourself whether you've been using more 1st or 2nd level slots, if you want to have a 1st or 2nd level spell. But the Command is a really good 1st level spell to use while you're not concentrating on something. It just that's good. That's like a good action. It's got some good uses. Alternatively, Blindness Deafness, I think, is the good alternative for 2nd level. It's single target, it's like save or suck. But blinded is quite debilitating, and it's con save, so not the best. Blinded is very debilitating. Deafened, in most cases, isn't going to come up. But sometimes there are cases where you want to deafen something, and then sure, you've got that option, but it's mainly a blind. So obviously, there's much more powerful 2nd level spells, but this is a lasting effect that doesn't use your concentration. And that's the main reason I'm taking it here. But I wouldn't have a large attachment to it. I think Command in general is a better spell than Blindness Deafness, but I'm kind of happy to keep using Thunder Waves and Hideous Laughters, so I'll take Blindness Deafness. And then on to the class features, you get an ability score improvement at this point, And with that, we're going to take one of the new Tasha's feats, Telekinetic. So this increases your charisma score, so now you're at an 18. This is the reason we had it at 17 in the first place. So you've got +4 charisma now, which is very solid. You also know Mage Hand, which is a good cantrip. You can do it without verbal or somatic components, so you can do it sneakily, and you can make it invisible, which if you've ever played an Arcane Trickster, is very cool. It's yeah, like you can steal things from people and stuff like that. It's not like overly the reason we're wanting to use it. It also increases by 30 feet, which is like I think it's 15 feet at base, so it's 45 or I think actually no, it's 30. So you get 60 feet, which is a lot better than it was before. On top of that, you can try and this is the main reason we're getting it, although all of this is actually really good at this still at this point. As a bonus action, you can shove someone at a distance, and it uses your main save DC. It's a strength save, which is like it's not great, but it's not bad. Probably one of the better saves to target. You'll definitely probably be able to tell when a creature has a good strength save. A creature can willingly fail the save, which will, it might come up. I can't imagine when you'd be pushing your allies and things like that. That's always an option. So, with this, the idea I had was using a cage. So if you can get a cage with some kind of like one-way door mechanic, in particular, this will be really helpful. But even if you've got a locking mechanism, if you make it basic enough that something like a familiar can do it, and you have complete control, by the way, when you're using this is using your performance of creation, that you have like complete control of how things turn out. So you can do this kind of stuff, and I think it makes this is a lot of what having the Tinker background also adds to this. You can kind of make you have more of an argument for why you can make these intricate contraptions, like things like locks and things like that. Like you'd have a working understanding of how they work, and so you'd be able to make like an easily pushable lock on one side. So you can maybe get like a familiar or something to lock it after you. But so you get a cage with some kind of one-way door or this kind of locking thing, and then you make that behind someone, then use this bonus action to push them in there, and have it close behind them. So they're pretty much like trapped in this 5-foot cage, and depending on the character, probably pretty unable to do anything about it. It's using a somewhat free resource. Otherwise, it would be using a second level spell slot, and with a second level spell slot, the ability to with just a strength save, like completely incapacitate someone without getting a later save, is very strong. And in conjunction with Tasha's Hideous Laughter, you can disable. It's much less permanent with Tasha's, but you can disable like 2 big players on the field. Yeah, it's quite strong. So that's another pretty good option. But also there'll be tons of other uses for shoving people and moving people around at a distance, especially in conjunction with your moat, your performance of creation. You can make like spikes. You can make like a sticky glue or something. I don't know. This will really depend on what you can think of and what your DM will let you do. Because just because of how iffy the rules around performance of creation are. Tons of options. So on to 5th level, let's go ahead and do spells first. Sorry, I'll just mention you get Font of Inspiration, which is you get your Bardic Inspirations back on a short rest, which means you just get so much more uses of them, and obviously works really well with your Watch of Potential. So spells. Looking at 3rd level spells, an easy choice for me is Hypnotic Pattern. I'm also a big fan of Fear, but I think Hypnotic Pattern is just a bit better. in my opinion. It's easily one of my favorite third level spells, and I think it's probably a bit more useful in more cases than Fear, because you get like Frightened immunity quite commonly and things like that. And also, Fear is a cone, and they can be kind of tricky as like a backline caster, because you have to make sure you're not hitting any of your friends, so you have to like move away from them. It can be a little bit more annoying to place than just something like a you pick a spot in 120 feet and it's a 30-foot cube. So yeah, very very nice there. In terms of other third level spells, the standouts to me are Tiny Heart, Lemon's Tiny Heart, and Dispel Magic. Dispel Magic, of course, you get to add your Jack of all trades bonus to it, so it's better for you than it is on most people, and it's pretty good on most people. Whether I would be using Major Room is another big one I like. Whether I would be because you need to get rid of one of your second or third level spells, first level spells, sorry, to get another one. I'm pretty happy to use both of my third level spell slots on Hypnotic Pattern. I can't really imagine, cases where I wouldn't. So I'm not overly tempted to, but I think Blindness Deafness I'm not very fond of having. Uh, and also Heat Metal is obviously a niche one, so replacing it with something else niche like Dispel Magic is also quite good. Good idea, but I think at this point I'm not going to remove any of these for Dispel Magic. I think I forgot to say earlier, but the way I want to do these builds isn't just exactly what I did. I also want to talk about other options that are quite good. I'll give you a bunch of good options and then just say what one I picked. So fifth level, pretty boring. It's just kind of short to talk about. It's actually even you get Font of Inspiration, which is a big deal. But even if I just got the Hypnotic Pattern, it's significant enough of a difference that I think this is a like probably your most significant level yet. Yeah. Anyway, on to sixth level. So let's just get the spells out of the way. I'm gonna take I'm gonna take Dispel Magic. Tiny Heart's also a good option. But yep. So the really exciting stuff. First of all, your Song of Creation, Performance of Creation, sorry, has now been buffed so that it makes size large. Also, at this point, you've got 120 gold pieces worth of something that you can create. So the size large makes it obviously a lot more versatile. You can make, with the cage idea before, you can make a 2x2 in terms of squares, which will for sure have its benefits. And it's just so much more versatile with the bigger size. I mean, a large is 4 times as big as medium, so if you think about it like that, it is a big buff. On top of that, you get Animating Performance. So with Animating Performance, you make anything large or smaller, so large is quite big, as I was just saying before. You can make it a dancing item. Now, it doesn't give any kind of save or anything like that for items on other people. So if someone has a really debilitating like magic weapon or something like that, you can just take it off them. Or like the wizards, if you're fighting an enemy wizards, like you can take their arcane focus or their like spell patch or something like that. You can just steal stuff without any save. So that's really strong. But there are plenty, like tons and tons of uses for this as well. The one I would be using most often with this specific character is to bring your mech to life. So obviously you don't have to have all of the weird nitty gritty components working with the mech, because you're bringing it to life magically. This is what I was saying. Like this is that spirit, that creation entity finally has a vessel to specifically control, and so that can lead to like role playing moments and things like that. So the actual dancing item stat block has good and bad things. I think in general it's really nice to have, but for reasons that people probably wouldn't be most like immediately attracted to. So first of all, you've got your main action that it can take, which is a force pellet slam, so it deals a D10 plus proficiency bonus. Force damage is obviously one of the best, probably I'm going to say the best damage type in the game, but so you've got which this is pretty damage. It's like free. I think you use your bonus action to command it. But you're not using a ton for your bonus action anyway. You can do bardic. I'm sorry, give me a second. Yeah, so you can use it as the same bonus action as your bardic inspiration feature. So which is your main bonus action thing. So bonus action is not a big deal that it's using. So you pretty much get it for free each round. So if you want to be doing this to deal damage, it's okay damage, but I think you could probably find something more interesting to do with its action each turn. Instead, if you look at the strength, it's got a +4 in strength, which is pretty good. Like that's as high as most of like your barbarians and stuff are going to have at this point. And it can also be up to large, which when you're talking about like grapples and things like that, there are rules that make it a lot easier to grapple if you're larger. So this is obviously quite, very, very nice. It also has a flying speed, so you can keep that in mind. One idea is like how, even if you literally just use this, and it can do so much more than this, but if you literally just use this whole thing for animating a large boulder, a 10 foot by 10 foot by 10 foot boulder. I think large foot can actually be like taller than 10 feet, but say that like pretty dense boulder, have it fly 30 feet above an enemy and just cancel it, so it just drops. That should do some significant damage, more than I'd say most, at least second level spells would be doing. Maybe I'd say that's like on par with a viable with how much damage it should do. But it depends. It depends how your DM would interpret it. Of course, as per usual. Yeah, this is another one that I could just talk on and on and on about ways I think of using this. It's just one that just it's so cool. And even like you can make, if you want something specific and you want to have it like fly around and stuff like that, you can use your performance of creation to make the item that you use to animate. So yeah, it's also got irrepressible dance, which is okay current control. It buffs movement speed for 10 feet of people around you and decreases 10 feet that you like want to. So the decrease in 10 feet is annoying, and the increase in 10 feet is nice, but it's not game changing. So one thing, if you want to be like, there's nothing that says you can't ride this item. So for something like your mech, you can jump into it. But maybe that sort of thing is hard to be around, so you might always have that round as an option. But even like a boulder or something like that, you can ride around. But if it's your mech, it's got 10 plus 5 times your bard level, which should be a little less than what you have. At this level, it'll probably be about exactly the same, because from a D8 you have 5 times on average, and then 10, obviously you're getting the +2 from your con each level. But this has 10, so... Oh, it was 6 levels, so it's slightly less. Slightly less health than you have, and it'll be, like... The gap will widen as you level up, but it won't be significant. It's still got a pretty good amount of health, and it's got an okay armor class as well, but it doesn't scale. Like, if you combine this with your health, like, it's tanky, and you just don't have to worry about it. So you can just jump in this, don't need to worry about getting hit yourself, and you can fly, and move around and things like that. And this is where I think also being a tinkerer can be really helpful, because if it's something if it's something you're used to having, you can put all these contraptions and things like that on your mech or something else that you're using and you're regularly animating. Um, so for instance, you can have like a screen that comes up, or like a closing door that just goes at a push of a button, so that like when you take your turn, you can open that, cast your spells and things like that, and then close it off so you have no chance of being targeted. And if you're in a world that's running guns, you can put a bunch of guns on it. There's all sorts of little like tinker, like just kind of go nuts with it, have fun with it, and like this is something that you really got to like want to talk to your DM about. That'll just be really cool. So it'll be a really cool moment in the combats that you can have access to this mech, and ones that you don't, because obviously it's going to be like a large construct. It'll be hard to keep around everywhere you go, you know. Yeah, so very very cool ability. Kind of a game changer. Yeah, and let's move on to 7th level. So at 7th level we get access to 4th level spells, and some good standouts for me. You don't have a big list here, but Dimension Door, Greater Invisibility, and Polymorph are probably the 3 main ones that stand out for me. Polymorph is kind of the obvious choice to me. I think Polymorph is strong. Like everyone knows Polymorph is strong. So yeah, just grab Polymorph. And unfortunately, that's all you get at. Well, I mean, Polymorph is significant enough. But that's all that happens at 7th level. So on to 8. I will also pick up Dimension Door. I like Dimension Door more than Greater Invisibility. Yeah, that's all I have to say about that. And back in main class features, you've got an ability score increase. Now, I'd personally choose to buff my charisma, but this is also a good option to look at. Actually, I don't think I will. Look at Warcaster or Resilient Constitution. And I think I will take Warcaster at this point. So that's going to give you the main thing is advantage on concentration checks, which is very nice. There's also spells as opportunity attacks, which is good if it comes up, but not a lot of things are going to be getting an opportunity attack against you. You can't use that as if you're in the mech, as your mech's opportunity attack, and it's unlikely that that'll count as yours. And also you can have full hands and still cast spells. The main thing is the other two are good abilities, but a little situational. Whereas the main thing you're doing is for advantage on concentration checks. And also on spells. Oh, I've done spells. Okay. So on to 9th level. Now you've got 5th level spells. So with 5th level spells, the two I want is Animate Objects, obviously fits with the theme, and Synaptic Static. I only get one preparation, but I do want them both. I think they both have different uses that are both, significant enough. So I'm going to unprepare. Heat Metal. Heat Metal is what I'm going to unprepare. I think it's just not significant enough, and it uses your concentration. Something you're probably not, you've got plenty of high level stuff to concentrate on. So I think, you're just not going to get the chance. I don't think it's overly going to come up anymore. So the 5th level, I'll prepare Synaptic Static. Synaptic Static can be pretty brutal. It's as good as a Fireball in terms of a blast, and then you also get this really debilitating effect that's similar to Bane, where they just get minus a d6 on all of their attack rolls and ability checks, and especially against like concentrating wizards, it can be bad. But that can turn just absolute tons and tons and tons of of what would be hits into misses from the enemies. So I think this is very very strong. Strong spell. Also just a better damage type as well than Fireball. Yeah. On to 10th level. Alright, at 10th level, of course, you get magical secrets. For my magical secrets, I'm gonna take Wall of Force. Obviously, a really, really, really good spell. Just absolutely love it. And yeah, it just ends encounters without saving throws, and yeah, things like that. I'm also gonna take, it's called something weird. Sorry, give me a second. Arcane Hand, which is actually Big B's hand. I don't know why it's called Arcane Hand in here, but for whatever reason, Big B's hand's not here, and Arcane Hand is here, but it's the same thing. So this is you know, this will function really, really well with your other abilities. You know, things like creating hazardous areas, because you can just like I think it's grasping hand, just grapple them and just move them places and things like that. It does use your bonus action, which conflicts with your dancing item. Not, you can still do stuff like if you're in it and it takes dodge action, so that's good defensively, things like that. And you probably wouldn't be using it overly lot, and you can kind of just like place it in certain places with like interposing hand and stuff like that, and you don't have to continuously use your bonus action to use it. So I think I wouldn't be using this all the time, but I think it's just so useful, like with the massive strength score and things like that, in conjunction with the kinds of stuff that you can set up. I think it's well worth the anti-synergy with dancing item. And also dancing item's not something you're able to use every single encounter. I think it's your proficiency bonus. I should know this. Sorry, by dancing item I mean animating performance. So it's a 3rd level spell slot to use your dancing item, which is probably like worth it in my opinion in almost all cases, but not always not always your obvious choice. You also get expertise at 10th level. We haven't picked up any more skills, so oh, did I take perception before? I meant to take persuasion here. I don't know why I went through the trouble to get it, because I'm just going to take perception here. But so if you had other ways of getting skills in particular, I don't really like perception as an expertise option all the time, even though it comes up always. There's never really there's often not a big penalty from failing a perception check, and there's not usually a massive reward from succeeding a perception check, or like there's not usually like really hard ones that you have. Yeah, so perception checks are usually middle of the road, even though they come up all the time. They're not usually super significant. So with expertise, I like to it really feels like you're an expert at stuff like that. So I'm not a big fan of any of these three as expertise, but I just can't see animal handling being coming up a lot unless you know, for some reason your DM uses animal handling checks in conjunction with your mech or something like that. Yeah, animal handling is pretty whatever. But if you could get what you want, like history here for the scams I was talking about before would be awesome. But I'm a big fan of expertise and insight. I think that can be really fun and really useful. There's tons of there's tons of proficiencies that are good to have expertise in. Yeah, that's just sort of down to the individual. You don't get any more spell preparations because you use them up with your magical expertise. Sorry, magical secrets. Yeah, but you do have 4 5th level spells at this point, so if you want, if there's earlier spells that you unprepared that you wanted to prepare, or other 4th level spells earlier, you're getting rid of probably Synaptic Static wouldn't be a bad idea, even Animate Objects, because Wall of Force is just better than Animate Objects. Oh yeah, Animate Objects also uses your bonus action, so there's the problems with Bigby's hand, same problems with Bigby's hand, and the dancing item. But yeah. I forgot to say we also get a new cantrip. I'm just going to take Prestidigitation. Light, obviously, still is a good option because we don't have Dark Vision, but I mean, you can always use a torch, and at this point you got Warcaster, so it's not that big of a deal. I'll be holding a torch and things like that. But yeah, so, and I just really like Prestidigitation. But yeah, not a big deal. Moving on to 11. So, weird bug there. I think this is an easy mass suggestion for me. I love this spell. I think it's very, very excellent. I don't really like any of the others. Ivite can be okay. Well, pretty good actually, but yeah. I think mass suggestion is an easy fit for me. There's no concentration. You can get hit multiple enemies. It's very strong. Yeah, and you got tons of other concentration options. So that was a quick level. Let's move on to 12. So with 12, you don't actually get any new preparations either. So the only thing we do get is an ASI. And here you can take, Meta Magic Adept, which will be strong with a lot of your abilities. Like particularly Careful Spell is the main one. I think I would take it for. And also Resilient Constitution for those concentration saving throws. But at this point, I'm just going to increase my Charisma. I think getting it up to 20 is may as well. You've got so much stuff relying on your saves. Obviously, you're a full caster. I think it's easily worth it just to take your Charisma up. 13th level. You're going to get your 7th level spells. And I think this is another easy pick for me, and that is Force Cage. I think the 7th level list is a bit better for buds. Yeah, Force Cage is just an obvious one for me. I think it's the best. Well, it's not Simulacrum, but it's just so effective. Some other ones I like. I quite like Mirage Arcane. It's a bit of a weird one. I feel like it's odd to use, but it's just got such a big range and you get so much control over everything going on. Yeah, it's got a 10-minute casting time, so it's not really like a quick combat kind of thing. But yeah, you'd be surprised at how overwhelmingly effective this can be. But I'm not going to take it. And also, Teleport is obviously a pretty good, really, really strong teleport spell. Funny that. Yeah, those are the main options for this level. And yeah, moving on to 14. You've got more magical secrets. So, I am going to take, I think, these are also really obvious. I don't know anyone that knows these spells that takes anything different, but yeah, Simulacrum for 7th level. Obviously, best 7th level spell in the game. Now you've got the 2 best 7th level spells in the game. So yeah, outside of combat, you can prepare a clone, and they can do all the stuff you can do. And the other one is Contingency. If I can find it in this enormous list. Here we go. Contingency. So, this is another one you'd do outside of combat, but it's pretty much like a get out of dodge, like when everything goes south, you can do something to prepare another spell. The spells I would prepare with Contingency. My first choice is probably Dimension Door. With 4th level, so given a certain command word, or if you get a quarter of your health or something like that, you can just zip away. Which is obviously really strong. Some other good options. I have wondered, I haven't tried this before, but I have wondered about doing polymorph with contingency. Um, so like when you get to like, I'm not sure how it would work if it would actually trigger if you got to 0 hit points and went unconscious, because like the way it works in my head, it does, but I've never actually like tried polymorphing a creature on 0 hit points, a teammate, because it replaces it. Oh, sorry, it is actually a preference of the spell. So, but maybe not. But like when you get like a quarter, you probably want to like polymorphing yourself is kind of a pretty good idea. Although we are kind of at the stage where polymorphing a T-Rex or a giant ape isn't overly effective. Um, it is, an option. um, yeah. But no, I'd probably just stick with Dimension Door. Also, at 14th level, you get Creative Crescendo, so you get to make up to your Charisma modifier of items, so 5 at this point, with your Performance of Creation feature. But only one can be the max size, the rest are tiny. I think better than that is that there's no gold value at all left anymore, so you can create literally anything. So like, if you're still doing cages, it's also huge at the moment. So it's buffed to huge. So if you're still liking the cages idea and you're still finding that effective, you can make them like adamantine. Adamantian. Yeah. Or something like that. And you also can make like the smaller tiny objects. I'm not sure exactly where they'd be coming up in combat, but I'm sure like there are uses for it. I'm just not getting any at the moment. But outside of combat, when you use this ability now, because you can use it whenever you want to use a second level slot or higher. And I think this is easily worth a second level slot. At this point, like it's just so effective. So at 15th level, we get 8th level spells. I think the spell list for bards is okay. Nothing I absolutely love, nothing I despise. I mean, I don't think Mind Blowing is particularly good, but uh, yeah, I think most of these options are solid picks. I wouldn't really I think Powered Stun's not great, but it's usable. Glibness is pretty interesting. It's not a combat thing, but your minimum roll is a 15, and so like if you're doing like a persuasion check, I think at this point the minimum you can possibly get is 30, which is pretty crazy. You can pretty much convince like most people of pretty much anything. This is like approaching levels of the meme about asking a king to give you his kingdom and you rolled in that 20, so obviously the DM has to go along with it. Like no, but I mean, if you're rolling 30s and stuff, like you can convince people of some pretty crazy stuff. Um, Feeble Mind can like absolutely destroy someone's ability to function as like a living thing for a really long period of time. Like Glibness, it's probably more best used outside of combat, but it's also okay in combat. It's obviously like pretty pitiful damage. That's not really why you'd be using it. But it's an int save, which is the best save. Um, and yeah, you just like if you cast this on an intelligence or charisma based caster, they're done. There's like nothing they can do. Um, yeah. Well, I mean, even any kind of spellcaster, like it's yeah, just can be absolutely debilitating, but probably not. Like it's a single target, save or suck, and at 8th level, that's like what are you doing? Same with dominate monster. It's the same. Might have the same problems with that, but this obviously does have its uses. I probably wouldn't go for it either. It's not the kind of spell I like, but I mean, you can absolutely control like dominate. in anything in the game. So surely there are people like massive fanboys of the spells, so all these types of spells. So I mean, if you are, don't feel bad about picking it. It's not awful. But I think the far and away best choice here is Antipathy Sympathy. Um, you can use mainly Sympathy to like group up a bunch of creatures into like one specific point, or like get them all attracted to one area. If you set up some kind of hazard there, it can be really, really effective at getting them all bunched up. And then, like bunching up is not a good strategy, and so you're kind of in a way forcing creatures to tend towards this like behavior. Um, so yeah, like anyone with like AOE's and there's tons of stuff you can do to really like set them up, and there's plenty of uses for antipathy as well. Definitely like if you got like a priority target, and it's a massive like you can go up to a 200-foot cube as the size of the target when we're talking about target here. Like yeah, like there are plenty of uses. You can stop a dragon from getting into your backyard or something. I don't know. But yeah, I think this is a pretty good spell and would for sure have its uses. Um, but yeah, again, like I'm not like overly impressed by any of these spells. I don't think you get anything here, right? Yeah, just checking. Yeah. Okay. 16th level. I think the correct choice is getting Resilient Constitution here because we still haven't gotten it. And if you've been finding your Constitution like failing saves, I mean it is. Yeah, I think this is the obvious correct choice. But I just really want to play around with some of the. Where is it? Meta Magic Adept. Oh, sorry. Uh, I think this just seems like a lot of fun. And I always take Resilient Cons. So, I mean, just shake things up a bit. It would be nice. I think Careful Spell is an obvious choice. And I think just being able to add Careful Spell, it is very significant. Um, you can do it twice and just stop them from being affected from the spell. I mean, this is for like the save and nothing spells like Hypnotic Pattern. I mean, you'll be doing much more effective things than Hypnotic Pattern at this point. Synaptic Static, you'll still be doing damage to your friends. Um, but yeah, there's pretty much you just don't need to worry about um, where everyone else is. I think uh, my next choice would probably be Subtle Spell, just in social situations, and like there's no reason anyone would be able to tell you're being casting a spell, and also this also affects counterspell. If you're facing up against something with counterspell, you can use this to stop them from being able to counterspell you. I also, of course, like Twin Spell, but it's only up to second level. I definitely want to get rid of one of my other spells that I'm not using very much anymore, and take Hold Person. I think Hold Person works really well with Twin Spell, because you only got 2 sorcery points, so you can only do a second level spell at most with it. But yeah, at this point, it's not going to be very significant. So yeah, I'll just be taking Subtle Spell. And yeah. Alright, 17th level. Finally getting into 9th level spells. This thing happened again. Alright, so yeah, definitely want to be brewing a 9th level spell. I'm personally going to go for Foresight. I think it just changes the game. It's useful every day. Um, it lasts the whole day. It's just game changing. It's really good. But also, Prismatic Wall and True Polymorph are both excellent spells. Yeah, for absolute sure. I'd almost say in general, I actually think True Polymorph is a better spell. It's not, you know, exact. Um, yeah, I just like the versatility of Foresight more. From this point on, I don't think you get a ton out of sticking with Bard. Well, actually, next level, of course, sorry. 18th level, you get your magical secrets and you can get Wish. My other spell choice, I think Mass Heal, Demi-Plane, and Clone are all really good options. Clone, obviously, if you want to stay, you know, like Immortality. um, it's like a big, like last resort kind of thing, to stop you from dying. Um, Mass Heal is a really good healing spell. Like it'll, in most cases, it'll bring your entire party up to full. And Demi-Plane is just like it's really solid in a lot of ways. You can go there and you can repair like glyphs of warding, and it can be like a really good hideout. There's just a lot of really good advantages to having a Demi-Plane. I'm a big fan of having one. But what I am gonna go with is just a kind of personal favorite of mine, and I don't think, that's completely wrong. Your 8th level spell, Antipathy Sympathy, I don't think it's something that isn't gonna come up all the time, and you have an 8th level spell slot every day, so you kind of want to have a good use for that every day. And I think if I can spell a very easy word to spell, Maze. I really like Maze here. It's just like they don't get any check to put them in another plane, and it's a DC 20 intelligence check, so a lot of things can't even make it. Like they'll literally be there for the entire time. And yeah, it's just like a instant leave, get like send something else out of the combat. Yeah, I really like Maze, and I think it'll become up much more often than Antipathy Sympathy, although there's still plenty of uses where you might want to use Antipathy Sympathy. So I don't think you get a ton from carrying on with Bard. So you have a few options. Sticking with Bard next level, you'll get another ASI, which you should take Resilient Constitution. You really, really should have. I cannot stress enough that it's not the smart decision to take Meta Magic Adept there. It's to take Resilient Constitution. It is a much more effective thing to do. But if you did do the smart thing and not the meat thing I did, then at this point you could take Meta Magic Adept, which would be kind of neat. You get another 5th level and another 6th level spell slot, but you get those as long as you take any kind of caster, full caster. So I think as long as you're multi-classing into them, it's not a bad idea. Those are probably the main things you'll be getting in the next couple levels. Couple options. Sorcery, you can get options like Shield, which even at this level is good. And more meta magic points if you take 2 levels. I think you definitely get like barely anything from 20th level Bard than you would from otherwise multi-classing. I think probably my favorite would be going into Wizard for 2 levels, and either going like Divine and getting Portent, or going with War Mage because they get some good stuff, and also some solid spells like Shield, as I said before, and Absorb Elements as well. I can't think of any others. I was thinking going into Fighter and getting Action Surge would actually be probably better than getting the extra 5th and 6th level spell slot. Maybe not though. Yeah, those are some of your main options. I personally am going to go one more level into Bard, just to get that ASO. Sorry, that feat. And grab Resilient Constitution. And for my final level, I want to do something a bit quirky. Oh, I can't, never mind. Alright, so you don't have a lot of options. I'm just going to go with Sorcerer. And of course you get your Sorcerer's Origin. And so I'll go with Sorcerer and personally just take Divine Soul. Primarily just because of the Favor of the Gods. So yeah, hitting 2d4. Once per short rest. Just like you can use it on your concentration saves and things like that. And just grab. You get a bunch of cantrips. I think it's pretty cool to finally be getting Firebolt, which is significantly more important and better than Vicious Mockery at this point. Although you are at the point that you're very rarely going to be actually casting cantrips, so it's obviously not necessary. You get guidance because of the Divine Soul, which is super nice. I think also taking Toll the Dead is an okay choice. Actually, I'm not going to. I'm going to take Shape Water. I like that as just like a nice sweet bit of utility. Again, you're at the point that cantrips barely matter. And maybe either Message or Moldeath. I like Moldeath. Yep, happy with those choices. And then just at first level, going to take Absorb Elements and Shield. Here we go. And that's just rounding out the final level of Bard. I forgot to say that what you're missing out on is Superior Inspiration, which is when you're not roll initiative and you have no uses of Bard Inspiration left, you regain 1 use. So you've got 5 uses at this point per short rest. And if you're going into combat, so in my games, I tend to be able to short rest before encounters. It's not super often that we'll be going into an encounter not off a short rest if we really needed it. Most of the time, like we wouldn't just because we don't need it. That'll be the times that we don't. But I understand that's not how most people play. So I'm just not really a fan of this feature in general because it encourages you to like use up all of your features, for one thing, but also just like a single use of Bardic Inspiration is not significant at all. I would much rather have Shield and Absorb Elements mainly, but also you get Guidance and you get a couple other cantrips that might come up, and you get the Favored by the Gods. I think it's just significantly more effective. More important. Like this is, yeah, kind of not that good. I mean, it's nice to have Bardic Inspiration, but at this point, just competing with which is too much. Yeah, and that is 20 levels of College of Creation Bard. That's my personal take on how I would personally build this.
I somehow lost my outro recording, so here we are. I'm having some webcam issues, so I'm just leaving that off. But anyway, that was my 20 levels of Creation Bard. If you enjoyed, go ahead, consider subscribing. If you made it this far in the video, I must have done something right. So yeah, I'll be making more content like this. So if you enjoyed, go ahead and subscribe. all of that YouTube stuff, and I'll see you around. Bye.